Hi there, I'm JoshKnightTheFirst.
I'm MarzGurl.
And we are currently on the road right now on the way to Nashville.
We're going through Nashville, actually. We're going to end up in Knoxville by the end of the day.
Yeah, but we're kind of bored right now because we're in between cities. There's really no radio station within a strong enough range for us to listen to the radio, so we're having to talk to each other right now. And,
oh no, how dare we have to talk to one another.
Yeah, that's horrible. So we figured we'd talk about some stuff that's that we're both very invested in, very passionate about. And basically what we're going to do is talk about certain intellectual properties and how to solve the problem in said intellectual property.
And then if we get into other discussions that, you know, branch off from there.
Rabbit hole off, yeah.
Let's just kind of see where this goes. Okay. Maybe somebody else will be equally as interested in this stuff as we are.
So I'm going to start off where I was a little bit further back. So I take a just basic idea, like a show like The Brady Bunch.
Uh-huh.
And think about it, what's the problem there? There's
too many damn people in that house.
Yeah, okay, so real easy way to solve The Brady Bunch, alright? Mr. Brady, it's been set up that he's an architect, and not just any architect, he's a very well-off architect. He wins awards, he can afford a full-time live-in housekeeper. Why doesn't he just design and build a bigger house for them?
And it's not like he's not well-off, right?
No,
they're doing kind of okay. If he wanted to, like if he was just a lazy SOB, he could just buy himself a house, right?
Right.
Surely.
And at the same time, like, you can't solve sibling rivalry. Obviously, you know, that's part of the dynamic of the show, but at the least, you can separate them out easier. Like, how come it takes him several seasons to figure out, you know what, let's put one of the kids in the attic? Like, how come that took so long to deal with?
That's a good question.
You know, things like that. But, you know, that's just an example. Okay, so, solving other problems in a show. Alright, Kaylin, I know that this is one of your things, Gem. How do you solve the problems that are apparent in Gem and the Holograms? Like, what are the problems to begin with?
Well, the problems are, Jerrica Benton, who is Gem, is constantly trying to make sure that nobody finds out that Jerrica is Gem and Gem is Jerrica.
Right.
Then there's Eric Raymond, who at one point owns half of Starlight Music, and the Misfits have a record deal with Starlight Music, and so does Gem and the Holograms, and Eric Raymond is constantly trying to take over Starlight Music. The Misfits are constantly being jackasses and destroying things and trying to get in Gem's way, sometimes even Jerrica's way, because they know that the two are related to one another, even if they don't know that they're the same person, right?
Right.
So, immediately, I say, Jerrica, just tell everybody that you're Gem, alright? Because she goes 3 full seasons, and, like, this goes into her personal life, too. The only people who know that Gem is Jerrica and Jerrica is Gem are the other members of Gem and the Holograms.
Right.
Nobody else knows. And she's got her boyfriend, Rio, right? And Jerrica was always dating Rio before she was ever Gem. But now Gem comes into the picture, and then Rio's kind of like, hey, I kind of like this Gem person, but he continues to date Jerrica, but what he doesn't know is that he's been dating the same person the whole time. But then he starts to get these feelings of guilt, right? And then Jerrica's always like, well, now I'm jealous of Gem. And it's like, you dumb... But
it's that whole Lois Lane dating Clark, but being attracted to Superman.
Yeah. And it's just kind of like, this could be solved so easily if you just told him, and then he could be like, wow, I feel so much better now. And then Jerrica could be like, you know what, me too. Now I'm not jealous of myself, and you don't have to feel like you're two-timing me, because, like, face it, we're both really terrible people if you come down and look at it. In fact, I was saying this earlier too. There's one specific episode where Jerrica gets especially jealous of herself, and Rio's not paying enough attention to Jerrica, nor is he paying enough attention to Gem, because, let's face it, when you're two-timing, you don't have enough time for both people. So, what, of all people, Synergy, you know, the hologram person who's kind of sort of her mom, but not really?
Yeah.
What she suggests is, hey, how about I make you temporarily this third personality? How do you like that? And we'll see what happens there. And you know what happens? Rio falls in love with the third personality too. And then by the end of the episode, Jerica's all, see, he just falls in love with whoever. But then Synergy's like, no, you don't understand. Every single time he's fallen in love, it hasn't been with one of the Misfits or one of the other female members of one of the other bands that I can't remember the name of that particular, the Stingers, one of the members of the Stingers. He's been falling in love with you every time, so in reality, he's always in love with you. And Jerica's all, wow, you know what, you're right, Synergy, and I'm just sitting here going, no! That's still equally as terrible!
Because really, this isn't the same thing as like say Iron Man, you know, the movie universe Iron Man, where Tony Stark reveals, hey, look, I'm Iron Man, and that creates more problems for him. You know, because there's a difference between Tony Stark, the billionaire playboy philanthropist, and Iron Man, the adventuring robot-looking guy who's blowing up illegal compounds and terrorist organizations. Jerica and Jem are essentially the same type of high-profile person.
Uh-huh.
Just saying one is the other doesn't change anything for either one, really.
Well, yeah, because Jerica, she eventually owns all of Starlight Music. And she also runs the Starlight House for Girls, the orphanage, and she's the one making all of the appointments for Jem. Again, despite the fact that Jerica may or may not actually be Jem, everyone associates her directly with Jem. They go to her to work with Jem. They go to her to set up concerts and tour dates. They go to her for production. All this crap, you know? So it's not like, oh, I need to keep these two lives separate because if I'm just little old Jerica, then people will leave me alone for a little bit. No, she's equally as huge. People equally know who she is. So what was the comparison I was making before? Well, like Jay-Z. If I were to say that Jay-Z is the musician and then
Sean
Carter is the producer, and like these are two completely separate people, like Sean Carter would be famous because he's a freaking high-profile producer. But then if you go and tell me, what? They're the same person? Oh, well, I guess that makes sense now, doesn't it? Like,
yeah.
That just sounds like something that somebody would do, that they would be a musician and a producer. That doesn't seem outside the realm of possibility.
Well, especially nowadays, like, there's no point in hiding that. It doesn't change too much for either one of them. Because I brought up for a little bit the idea of Jem being the forerunner to a series like, say, Hannah Montana.
Which a lot of people actually have made comparison to.
Where Hannah Montana is the stage act that's getting, you know, a bunch of fans flocking to her and wanting her music and wanting to spend time with her. And her alter ego, who escapes me at the moment because I didn't watch the show, she's the one leading the normal schoolgirl life.
Because she just wants to be the normal, average, everyday, have a normal life kind of person.
But there the dichotomy makes sense because one is the high-profile one and the other is just trying to lead a normal life. Whereas with Jem and Jerica, they're both equally high-profile, so what's the point?
There really is no point. And then, okay, so really the next problem is, again, Eric Raymond, the guy who...
And the Misfits.
Yeah, the guy who produces the Misfits. Right? So after a little while, he no longer is part of Starlight Music, and then he goes and he opens up Misfit Music.
His own label.
Yeah, his own record label. And, like, the whole time, no matter whether it's early on in the series when they're still under Starlight Music, or it's a little bit later on and they're under their own record label, they're constantly causing crap. Like, there is so much illegal, illicit activity going on between Eric and the 3 to 4 members of the Misfits, depending on what part of the series you're watching.
Yeah.
There's, like, billions upon billions of dollars of restitution to be
delivered because of their actions.
Yeah, they dang near kill people. So freaking close to kill people constantly. Not to mention property damage and emotional distress. Just the fact that Eric Raymond hijacked Jerrica Benton's mother's music. He takes that music that her mother has passed away, but there's only like this one master tape or record or something with her mother's music on it, and he's like, hey, if you sign over the record label to me, then I'll give you back your mom's music. You know what you could do? You could call the cops and say, hey, he's got the only copy of my mom's music. And so she goes over to Eric's place and she's like, can't we talk about this? No, I'm not going to sign over the music. And Eric's like, okay, tough crap. And he throws the tape into a fire, destroying what she thinks is the one and only copy of her mom's music.
Right.
Which, like, oh my god, property damage and emotional distress like you wouldn't believe.
And
theft, yeah, like you would not believe.
So basically what you're saying is one of the basic ways to solve Gem 1 was for Jerrica to admit that she's Gem, and 2, just press charges against Eric Raymond.
Eric Raymond and the Misfits, yeah, because then they'd be in jail, and then, like, I can't tell you how much that would stop, because it not only hurts Gem and the Holograms and Jerrica and Starlight Music, they hurt so many other innocent people around the world over the course of these 3 seasons just to get whatever the crap they feel like they want that week. It makes absolutely no friggin' sense. And every time, it's like they almost get arrested, and they even comment several times, why are you not in jail? And I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe because you didn't press charges. Why didn't you think about doing that?
Basically, any uniformed officer of any level of law enforcement could watch them doing something on the average week, and they could testify in court to put them away.
Yeah.
Like, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Did Eric Raymond do that crap?
He sure did.
Guilty! Alright, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Did the Misfits help Eric Raymond do that crap?
They sure did.
Guilty! Like, it's that easy. And they would be paying for the rest of their lives. Their grandchildren would need lawyers based off how much they've done.
Abso-friggin-lutely.
So that's how you solve Gem, basically.
Yeah, but I mean, the only thing left after that is that if the concern at that point after that is synergy. You know, the big
why synergy?
She's the big computer robot thing that makes all the holograms. It was like one of the last things that Jerrica's dad made before he died. And apparently it's so high future tech that nobody else has made these incredible holograms before ever, and they have the only one that does that crap. And they don't even know how to recreate it. They barely knew how to fix it, like this one time. They were able to take it apart and put it back together the way it was, but they don't know how to do anything else with it.
So then after she reveals that she's Gem, just put a patent on synergy. That seems simple to me.
Well, except for the fact that they don't know how to make synergy to begin with, because when you put out a patent, you have to also give out the plans of, alright, this is how it was created, so that if somebody else, because a patent doesn't say that somebody else can't make holograms, it just means that you can't go about it basically the same way, because that would be theft. So, unless they got some other super scientist to take synergy apart and analyze her and put her back together, which I guess they could afford, except apparently her dad was a super genius, and I don't know why it was that he wasn't out there doing science things, but he wasn't, so, like, none of that really makes sense. But
so what, finding a way to patent synergy would fix it, though?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, well, that's easy.
I guess.
If they can afford it, they can get somebody on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Gem, basically, in a nutshell.
Okay.
Okay. Alright, let's say something like, let's say Voltron. How do you solve the problems with Voltron?
Well, okay.
Okay, what is the problem with Voltron? Alright,
there's a war, right?
Right, there's basically one planet left that, Planet Doom or Castle Doom hasn't taken over yet, right?
I guess so. Whatever the name of, I can't, right now I'm blanking on
right now I'm blanking too.
Name of the planet with the lion robots.
Right.
So.
So it's up to these 5 people, 6 if you count the princess, to save the planet using this one robot lion to stop things. Okay. Coming up with the problems that are presented in episode 1 of Voltron.
Now realize, I think that most of the problems that come up, they come up because our dub did not account for the things that were happening in Go Lion. They just kind of made crap up because they did not have scripts at all when they were producing Voltron. So they created a whole new world of problems.
Right, well, let's address those problems.
Okay.
What problems got addressed? Hell, even in the opening dialogue read by Peter Cullen. So, we've got this planet of evil that's taking over things and wiping out things in the galaxy, and there's apparently an alliance of good planets, right? Like, why hasn't the good alliance of planets agreed to nuke Zarkon? Why haven't they done that?
I mean,
did they try that already?
Well, granted, later on, there is a war effort that they do rise up, but at the same time...
You're talking about vehicle Voltron, right?
Well, even at the latter half of regular old Voltron, right? They do something? Don't they?
Well, point being, though, you always bring this up. Who decided who was in and not in this alliance of good planets?
And is it really that black and white? Like, good planets and bad planets? And is it like, okay, we on this half of the galaxy, we're the good planets, you stay on your side, we'll stay on our side? Or are the bad planets interspersed with the good planets?
You mean like in terms of distance and placement?
Yeah, in which case, wouldn't that make relations really, really bad? Like, that would be... You know, when America went through the Civil War, it was pretty clear North and South.
Right.
But if what we decided was quote-unquote North, I'm just going to call it North for the sake of being like the good states and the bad states. If they were interspersed throughout and between the South, the bad states, then wouldn't that make war very, very hard?
Well, yeah, it was at certain points.
Well, I mean, so is any war, but at least all of these people down here in the South can kind of go about their business and travel within the South. But if you're trying to travel from one star to another star, and there's a bad star in between your two good stars, then that's gonna, like, stop and interfere with, like, trade and communications. Like, how do you even know what's going on? How do you get these good planets to sit down in one boardroom meeting together? Like, I really want to know the way this governing system works.
And then it's the idea that, like, don't get me wrong, I love the show, but I'm trying to think about the concept right now that these 5 lion robots that make this one giant anthropomorphic robot are going to stop this war that has seemingly taken over a whole side of the galaxy and 90% of this one planet, but they never actually seem to push very far until the very end.
Well, like, yeah, they will eventually, but as much as, like, we've been watching in that first season, then no, they don't tend to do very much. They can only protect so much. Every week, Zarkon sends another monster down, right?
Right.
And they defeat that monster, and it's like, yay, we won the battle. Okay, well, how are you going to stop the whole dang war? Because Zarkon is enslaving people. In Go Lion, his counterpart is killing people.
Burning them on fire, whole villages, crucifying people. Like, it's bad. And even in that sense, Go Lion only does so much.
Well, yeah, because what was also the other thing we were discussing? If we were to compare it to Sentai or other
like Power Rangers,
other 5-member teams of that ilk, you know, a lot of other series, the threat level is only so big, right?
Right.
Because, say, Power Rangers or Zoo Ranger, right?
Right.
You got Bandora or
Rita Repulsa.
They kind of choose just one city to attack.
Right.
Like, it's that joke that I think people constantly make. Like, man, they've got this fighting force over here in Tokyo / Angel Grove. maybe we should try attacking someplace else. But they don't. They keep attacking the same city over and over again. Like, maybe they could get some results if they actually attacked outside of their little bubble. Like, you're on the friggin' moon. You could choose another spot.
Right.
But that's not the case with Go Lion, where you've got, again, a 5-man team, except you're trying to fight a whole galactic war with 5 people and a giant lion robot.
Yeah, you're basically having to defend a whole planet.
And aside from that whole planet, because Zarkon's taking over the galaxy.
Right.
But the planet's already screwed. You sit there and you defend this one city, and what good is that going to do? Like, oh, okay, we'll leave your town alone, that's fine, we're just going to be over here taking everything else. Okay, if you want to live in blissful ignorance, I mean, I guess that's cool.
Well, I mean, Princess Aurora is kind of in blissful ignorance most episodes, like, yes, our castle is fine! Yeah, but your people are getting enslaved on the daily. What kind of ruler are you? Can we have a vote? Can we get you out of there, please?
No, I rule through bloodline.
Yeah, well, that ain't working out so well. We're kind of dying over here, running out of food and water. We'd really like some help. Like, that would be most helpful.
So how do you solve that problem anyway? Because
you nuke Zarkon. Because you're trying to tell me that this galactic alliance of good planets didn't, like, I was bringing that up earlier, did they not already try to nuke him? Like, they do have some sort of mega weapon to use on him, don't they?
I don't know. What about all the bad planets? It doesn't sound like Zarkon reaches out to any other planet. He just uses the resources that he and his witch lady have.
Yeah. And
that's about it.
But I'm thinking about it like, you could Independence Day that mess real easy. Within the first 2 episodes, the 5-man team with Keith and everybody take over one of Zarkon's ships and manage to get it to the right planet. You're telling me you couldn't do that a second time, because Zarkon isn't exactly that bright. You're telling me you couldn't do that a second time, put some sort of mass weapon on the ship, and then drive it into his palace?
I don't know, maybe they're not that smart.
I guess not.
Which is really strange, because the opening says that this team of 5 people is specially trained.
Yes, specially trained.
Which, if you go by Go Lion, no, they're not. They're just a bunch of a-holes who got really lucky.
Yeah.
They escaped from this prison, and they were like, oh my god, where are we? Oh my god, it's these lion robots. And nobody was trained.
No, they just kind of fell into it, kind of more like Power Rangers.
Which is why I say, well, most of these problems creep in, because, hey, you guys really didn't even try to grab scripts for these episodes, did you? And you just started filling in blanks, and you didn't do a very good job.
Because you compare that to something like, say, Sailor Moon, as far as we're watching now with what they're releasing again over on Hulu and Neon Alley.
Yeah.
At least Sailor Moon makes strides in so much as it took them a couple of episodes, but they're taking out lieutenants. Granted, they've only got like 4 moves between them, but they're at least taking out the higher-ups.
Slowly but surely, and it's like
they're making more progress in 12 episodes than the Power Rangers did, or
Go Lion,
or Voltron, or the Voltron Force did. That says something.
Yeah, I suppose so. And it's funny how we complain that, just like you said, they only have maybe 4 moves between them. The Scouts don't actually fight. They do a whole bunch of posing. They get fought. Like, the monsters of the week fight. They fight, and then the girls run, and then Tuxedo Mask shows up and
provides a distraction at best.
And then runs away himself. And then the girls use the same moves every single episode. Until later on.
Yeah, but see, that's kind of the thing that it runs into with, say, Voltron. Yeah, they end up having to use the blazing sword, but they're wrestling with the monster. Like, they're having to physically take it on.
Yeah.
Like, they're having to do stuff, whereas the Scouts, it's like, what do they have between them? They've got Moon Tiara Action, which is Sailor Moon's one offensive attack. You've got Bubble Spray.
Yoma Tyson.
Oh, yeah, evil spirit, disperse, or however you want to translate it. And
Fire Soul.
Fire Soul, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's just those 4 attacks right there.
We haven't even gotten to Burning Mandala.
Yeah, and we still don't have, as far as we're going off here, we don't have Jupiter or Venus yet. But you think about it, between those 4 moves, they're managing to defeat the bad guys somehow. Because it's that whole thing, it's that whole trope that you kind of accept that the bad guy doesn't get out of the way of the attack that's coming right at them.
Well, they also don't attack when they're transforming.
Because, okay, kind of flipping the script on there, the Sailor Scouts are actually doing a pretty good job in comparison. If you're the Dark Kingdom, how do you do better against the Scouts?
I don't know. You keep doing this thing with your hands around the crystal ball way harder than you're already doing every episode, apparently.
Well, no, because, like, you think about it, there's better ways to go about your plans to bring about the Dark Kingdom's victory than what you're doing.
The whole collection of energy thing, right?
Right.
Like, the problem I always see with them collecting energy is they want to collect a lump sum of energy all at once. What they don't do is collect a little bit at a time and then send that energy to their great leader, right? Instead, they're like, we have to collect all of it right now and give them a chance to stop us and then disperse the energy back to where it came from.
Right.
Like, they could be siphoning it in very slow reserves that nobody can really detect.
Yeah, because Jadeite's plan, they're basically referring to Jadeite's plans, which are basically like, let's say you have a pitcher, and what you want to do is you want to bring a full pitcher back to the Dark Kingdom, but what happens is before that pitcher gets full, the Sailor Scouts dump it out.
Yeah.
And then you're left with nothing.
Like, what he should be doing is pouring a glass every so often.
And delivering that. It'll take longer, but you're going to get your result.
But then, what is the current Ite's name? The current rock food?
I keep forgetting. Is it Zephyrite right now? Zoisite?
I think it's Zoisite right now. Dang it. Man, I can't put rock name together with
I know,
face.
I always get them mistaken.
I know all the names, and I can't put them together with faces very well, because I suck at that. But his plan is go after an individual who's about to come into quite a bit of energy. And I'm just kind of sitting here like, oh, well then it makes it easy for them to protect the one target. Like you're putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, but at the same time I can kind of see, okay, you know what, let's focus on getting it out of one person. That kind of makes a little bit more sense to me.
So, hey, I'm still supposed to be going toward Nashville, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, really? Knoxville?
Oh, dang it. You know what? I need to...
No, you're good. Just follow the sign.
Yeah, but that says Knoxville to 440.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right.
So I'm supposed to go to the 440?
Yeah.
Okay. I really wish we had looked at these directions.
Well, here in Nashville's where it's supposed to change.
Because, see, you didn't tell me that. You said it was going to stay the same once we got to Knoxville.
Well, let me get the...
Once we got to Nashville.
Here, I'll double check.
Well, I'm getting off to go toward Knoxville.
Well, we are heading towards Knoxville. Okay, point being, though, the Dark Kingdom could be a little smarter about that. Right?
Well, yeah, of course they could be. Like, I'm almost... Half the time, I'm rooting for the bad guys, because I feel like the bad guys could be way more effective at their jobs, and they just aren't.
Yeah.
Really, so too could the good guys. I mean, if both of them were smarter, then... Okay, if only one of them was smarter, then we would not have a show anymore, and it would be over real quick. Either the good guys would super win, or the bad guys would super win. If they were both smarter, you might have a more interesting show, because then you'd have some real mind and power struggles.
Right. Now,
but then you might find yourself racing toward the end a little bit faster.
But the thing is, these are what they are. These are already set in stone stories that you still manage to enjoy despite these kind of, in some cases, glaring logical problems.
Yeah.
So then, okay, that's pretty much Voltron right there, right? Nuke Zarkon.
Did we move on to Sailor Moon?
I don't know. We kind of moved in. We kind of laterally moved into Sailor Moon there.
Sailor Moon has a completely different set of problems that reveal themselves slowly over time, though.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I feel like Doug, as the nostalgia critic, got wrong is that he only watched so much, so that yes, it did look very Monster of the Week, but then it turns out there's this whole backstory of, oh, we're reincarnated moon people, and these are reincarnated Earth people. There's this far bigger Earth versus moon struggle. There's villains that are much bigger that we don't technically know about yet. So really, I think it's pretty hard to pinpoint how do we solve Sailor Moon's problems, you know?
Right. Okay, now let's think about what's another case that we can talk about, like solving the problems. Let's jump to more current things with, like, say, Kamen Rider Gaim that we just caught up on.
Okay.
Current problems facing the series right now. Redyu and I guess the king of the overlords have opened up all of these cracks all over the world, and now the world is being infected by the Helheim Forest. How do you stop that problem, as well as the interpersonal problems, specifically coming from someone like Michi, who's helping them out?
I don't know, the problems seem bigger than the Earth.
Well, for one thing, I like the fact that it's a problem that isn't, like we were bringing up, so localized. Now everybody's got a problem.
Well, yeah, at this point, America's been blowed up.
Yeah, that surprised me, that, oh, you went and blew up America. You didn't just make those missiles disappear, you nuked a country.
Uh-huh.
Like on the one hand, it's like, hey, go for taking chances, but at the same time, ow. It's like, really, that's a better example of the problem's not so simple, and yet it is simple. You've got to somehow make them turn off the forest or close the cracks, but then you've got to clean up everything that's on the inside, and then stop anybody from stabbing you in the back, because really the bulk of the problems in that series are people stabbing each other in the back.
Right, I feel like actually there's been a lot of not solving of problems, like problems continually get worse. I think if there's anything I'm frustrated with about Gaim, it's that really for all the fighting, nobody has solved anything. Nobody has really protected anything.
So would you say it's a war of attrition then?
Quite a bit, I'd say so, yeah, because nobody's winning. Things are just getting worse and worse and worse, and really for all the fighting that Gaim himself does...
Kota, you mean?
Yeah, well, his...
Yeah.
Excuse me, Josh, he's Kamen Rider Gaim.
Okay, alright.
For all that he does, he hasn't done jack. He really has not.
So you agree with the sentiment that he's holding out for hope for nothing, then?
Like, clearly, the series is going to turn around, and he's going to win, and it's going to give him hope. But, you know, quite frankly, most of the world is in destitute already at this point. And...
Well, because I think it's interesting, because I've complained about this for years, that when you finally get your final form, if you give it to him too early, then it looks weird when you start jobbing to monsters, you know?
Uh-huh.
You know, you just start losing when you're supposed to be at your utmost power. Whereas here, it's not as easy as it's a matter of power against a monster. It's a matter of there's all these other things in play, and it's not as simple as I just have to defeat you.
Yeah, which makes me really kind of wonder, as much as I have, like, I went from completely hating Gaim to really being interested and invested, now I'm kind of back to being on the fence, if I may say so, and that's
really?
And that's only because I really feel like our hero means nothing.
Really?
Yes, I feel like our hero really doesn't... Like, he's a good fighter, and he fights for the right things. I think he's a perfectly great character. Do not get me wrong.
Okay.
I think he's a great character. But as a hero, as the hero of this particular program, he doesn't hero worth a damn.
Really?
No. No, he's not saving anybody. Nobody is saving anybody. Everybody is screwed.
So then, that buys into the whole thing that Sakura told him that he's basically... Sakura fed him everything he needed to hear to keep trying to fight to be a hero.
Keep left at the 4. Follow signs for I-24 West / Nashville / Knoxville.
Okay, yeah, just follow the Knoxville signs.
Okay.
But basically it comes down to that. Sakura fed him a bill of goods when it came to giving him the Kachidoki Lock Seed and now the Kiwami Lock Seed to keep him fighting for whatever reason, which we still don't know at the moment. Because Sakura's got his own reasons for having Kota fight.
I'm sure later on, like I said, it's gonna turn around and it's gonna be like, oh, he's gonna get the fruit, the super special awesome golden fruit, whatever.
Right.
And then he's gonna be freaking amazing, and then he's gonna save the world. Okay, great. But as of right now, we've gotten how many? 30 some odd episodes?
35.
35 episodes, and it's just been. Okay, fighting, great, and the fights look really cool, and that's all it's been worth to me.
Well, because the thing about it is, yeah, the fights are good, but this is a completely different sort of circumstance, where it's not so much that the monsters are any stronger, really. I mean, granted, the king, I keep forgetting his name, so I'm just referring to him as such, the king of the overlords, he's obviously the strongest one, having already obtained his... forbidden fruit, but it's not so much a matter of him being strong because he's not fighting right now. It's a matter of, like you say, there's so much stuff going on that whatever monster he defeats doesn't add up to the fact that there's still people being turned into monsters, being eaten by the monsters, feeding off them,
ending up being food for the monsters.
Like I know they're not.
It's another instance of there's a lot of battles being won, but they're so small it's not winning the war.
Kind of what we were bringing up about Voltron.
Yeah.
You're fighting, but what are you really fighting for if you're not making any headway? Yeah,
and so for that reason, I'll reiterate. I feel like I myself, as a viewer, am not getting anything out of the hero. I think the overarching story is a pretty interesting one to follow. Again, don't get me wrong.
Right. I get you.
I just, again, feel like our hero, he's just kind of there.
I think he's only there because of the fact that really the writing has stacked the deck against him and really the world so largely that how on earth is he going to get out of it without somehow the tide turning in his favor?
And yeah, that's, again, no duh, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, you can see it coming from a mile away. I just feel at this point very frustrated and very much like my hero has not acted very hero.
Right. Well, I'm trying to think about how exactly that's going to happen when it comes to that within the next couple of weeks. Because when you think about it, we're episode 35. We've got, at best, 15 more episodes to go before we see the resolution of this series.
Again, learning about the world has been very interesting. Learning about how this other world was affected by bad crap going down, and now they're trying to recreate their own world using our world. Very interesting sort of story. Very interesting backstory. Very interesting history. It's just Kota Gaim himself. That he is, I kind of like that he is otherwise a very normal person who's just reacting the way a normal good person would in that given situation, but it's not like a hero rising to the task. I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, because what really needs to work in his favor is one of two things from what I'm seeing here. One, you've got to stop the infighting. The infighting is what's going to get you killed. It's really what's helped screw things over up to this point. It's only now that the other writers in that city are starting to work together, and yeah, you feel better about it, but at the same time, you working together only does so much unless you're actually working to either take back, the tower, the Yggdrasil Tower, or take out Redu or, one of the other overlords. Up to that point, you being a team doesn't matter very much at all. And then two, like I said, you have to somehow stop them, get them to change their mind, undo things that really are beyond their understanding and capability right now. And how they're going to do that, I have no idea. And actually, I'm glad that I have no idea how it's going to work. Because other series, it's like, okay, you can kind of see from down the road what's going to happen. Like, you take last year, for example, with Wizard and Koyomi. You knew Koyomi was going to be the Deus Ex Machina that they were going to have to deal with.
Oh yeah, you knew it right from episode 1.
You knew it from episode 1. That was going to be what had to be fixed. Like, oh, when it comes down to it, Koyomi's going to be the sacrificial thing, and he's going to have to save her or relieve her. And then when it happened, you weren't surprised.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this much. I kind of wish that Kamen Rider Gaim was not called the Kamen Rider series. And I say that because I am very interested and invested in all of these people as characters, including Kota, because Kota is a very good person, and again, a very normal person, going through very normal sort of reactions to what's happening around him, to all of these other people who are very sadly stabbing in the back for really not doing anything wrong.
Right. Yeah, because they've got their own problems.
But the fact of the matter is, this doesn't feel like this series is especially about him yet. 35 episodes in, and it feels like it's about everybody, which is cool, but it doesn't feel like it's about the main character being a hero and saving everybody.
Because he still hasn't exactly figured out how to do that.
Which is fine. It's totally okay writing. But it doesn't feel like a Kamen Rider series to me. It just feels like a whole bunch of dudes in suits.
I think it's, for what it's worth, from its departure from your typical formula, it's worth the watch if only to see a writer who can't win. Even though he's got all this power, it's interesting to see that for the moment.
I'll put it this way. I know it hasn't come out yet, but I'm going to kind of compare it to Final Fantasy 15 in that 15 looks like it will be a very interesting game, and it will be a complete diversion from what Final Fantasies have been in the past. It doesn't mean that it will necessarily make it a bad game. In fact, I'm definitely going to play it. I'm looking forward to it more than I was ever looking forward to Final Fantasy 13. However, I still don't believe it looks like a Final Fantasy, or that it ever will look like a Final Fantasy. I feel like that's the same case that I've come to accept with Gaim. It doesn't feel like a Kamen Rider series to me. It just feels like a Tokusatsu series, and that's okay. I just wish they hadn't given him the name Kamen Rider.
I don't know about that, because I felt that way about... You know this. I felt that way about Forze, that even though it was quote-unquote an anniversary series, it didn't feel too much like a Kamen Rider to me. Since then, I have come to accept, you know what, whether I like it or not, it is canon, so to speak. But that's not to say that I agree with a lot of the stuff that was going on there. Here, I see the tropes there, but I see those tropes getting turned on their head by the situations the protagonist and the other surrounding characters are getting put in. So for what it's worth, I think it's fine that the series is called that. Really, I actually share your sentiment that you said at the top of the, when we first started watching the series, that I wish they weren't called Armored Riders, that they found an excuse to call them Kamen Riders, and not just label them as something else.
That's why I almost think maybe they should have been called, the series should have been called Armored Riders then. Because why is it called Kamen Rider? Why? Because nobody has ever referred to them as Kamen Riders except for that one time that wasn't even within the constraints of this particular television series.
Right, we're of course referring to Wizards episode 51 and 52, the tack-on episodes.
Where they just kind of threw the name Kamen Rider at him, and then he kind of never ever referred to himself as a Kamen Rider ever again within the episode, ever since he got his lock seat, ever since he got his belt. I can't.
Well, at the least you can say you're happy about the fact that they dropped the dancing thing.
Oh yeah, thrilled. Oh Jesus, yes.
But now it's a matter of, okay, you've given us this world, you've given us these characters that we've actually grown to like and be interested in, and now you've got to figure out, how do you solve this, or does it even get solved? Will this be the first series, and I'm almost starting to question that, will this be the first series where you don't get an answer?
I don't know. You remember Blade, though?
Well, yeah, because Blade...
Your main Blade...
Kenzaki, yeah.
He kind of won and kind of didn't, because he became the thing.
Yeah, he became an undead, sacrificing himself so Hajime could live.
Yeah,
but as
so,
such,
like,
that wasn't exactly a happy ending. Ryuki, that wasn't a happy ending, you know, because really the whole thing just kind of started over again.
I almost feel like if something's gonna happen, it will be a mix of happy and not so great.
Well, because you think about it, the ties that we're seeing there of Kota starting to say, I can't taste anything, I'm not hungry anymore, that gives me, those Blade overtones of he's going to become, or even O's for a second, even though he got out of it, becoming the monster in order to beat the monster. Which again goes back to that old thing of the power of the writer is tied directly to the power of the villains, which is something they were trying to make a point of in those last 2 Wizard episodes, but they kind of fudged it.
In that regard, yeah, you can say he is still a Kamen Rider, because within the constraints of the original several series, the power of the Rider was acquired through the villain.
Right.
You know, villains constructing and performing surgeries on the dude who would eventually become the hero, and they're like, oh, who would have expected that he would have freed himself from our constraints and then start fighting against us?
Yeah, like no duh.
I get that, but then a lot of series do that, not just Kamen Rider. So,
right.
Again, it's hard for me to necessarily like that it's called Kamen Rider when they don't ever call him a Kamen Rider.
Well, the thing I don't like at this point, like, again, I like the writing, but here's something that I praised them for before, and now I'm kind of mad at them for, and maybe they'll fix it next episode based off the previews, is that because of them having to go back and forth between their world and Helheim Forest, they gave them a reason to use their bikes on a consistent basis.
And now the bikes aren't there.
And now the bikes aren't there because they don't have to go into the forest anymore.
Yeah.
So as such, they haven't had a use for them, and that's the same problem that happened for me, like in Kabuto. Once you hit a certain episode count, you stop using the bike. And you kind of remembered once, like I think they use it once around episode 30-something. It's the episode with the triple rider kick between Gataka, Kabuto, and Kickhopper. Just that brief moment where the bikes are viewed, it's like, oh yeah, we remembered you had them. And I hate the fact that it comes to that, because, you know, part of the term writer means you're writing something.
Right.
So if you aren't facilitating that, you're kind of losing something there.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I think we've said enough about that. For you then, jumping back to something, what's a... I think you brought this up before, 8, Final Fantasy 8. How do you work that out differently than the story that's already been presented?
Shoot, I don't know, because it's a damn time loop. And I hate time loops. Time loops are so bad. Unless you're Back to the Future, in which you're entertaining, but you're Final Fantasy 8, so you're not. Let me put it this way. I like Final Fantasy VIII well enough. However, if I were to try and rank favorite to least favorite, down at the bottom with least favorite would be 13, and then probably followed by 8. However, there's a huge gap between the two, because 13 is...
Because 13's like sub-basement, and 8's like...
And 8's like, okay, we're at floor 1. Hello, phone. But I don't know how to solve the problem, because the only way, apparently, in that world, the only way to solve the problem is to perform the time loop ad nauseum for the rest of eternity.
And you can't get out of it.
And you can't get out of it. Because here's big old spoilers for the whole game. You go and you take the powers that you acquired from this one witch, and then when time all gets stuffed into one pocket of time, then you go and you touch the lady who's gonna become a witch, and then she has to do the same thing, and like, for this area of time that involves this small group of people, let's just say that time is, you know, this concept of it's always going to be this time at some point in the universe.
Yeah.
These particular people, at this point in their lives, will always have to perform this duty of, okay, Renoa has to get touched by a witch, and then Renoa has to go back in time and touch another witch
to cause it
in the past, to cause it to begin with, and then we do this whole thing all over again.
Well, it's kind of the same thing that, excuse me, I think people have looked over before, which is
Or no, not Renoa. Edia has to touch herself? No, Ultimecia has to touch Edia. Excuse me, I totally got that backward.
Okay, but it's basically this whole thing of, see, at least that has a causation and an end product, whereas something like, say...
But somebody can't, like, go back in time and tell them, hey, just do this thing. Well, technically, Squall does that, and he goes, hey, you created the gardens so that you could create these soldiers. I'm one of these soldiers, and I'm supposed to fight for you, and so we do. So you need to go and you need to go do that thing.
Right.
And so he tells that much, but it doesn't really solve the problem.
Because that's the thing with a time loop. Somebody has to experience something initially other than what happens in the loop, but then has to start the loop, right?
Yeah, so that would kind of mean that there is an alternate universe out there somewhere, right? Where the first Edia did not get told by future Squall that, hey, you're going to make Garden and you're going to teach me how to be a soldier to fight for you.
Well, that basically goes back to into Terminator territory, doesn't it? Slightly? Because you think about it that way. If you're looking at initial timeline that starts the franchise, you look at Terminator... Skynet has to come into existence without anybody's knowledge at all. Without anybody's interference at all, John Connor has to become the leader of the Resistance. But then it has to get so bad that John Connor figures out he has to go back into the past to fix things. And then that starts the loop of Skynet going back into the past to try and stop what John Connor's doing versus John Connor trying to stop Skynet, and then that becomes the loop.
So surely there's got to be a fan fiction out there somewhere, right? Where, Edia becomes this witch, and she has to create Balam Garden, or any of the gardens, to create the siege soldiers to fight for her. Or maybe she doesn't get told by Squall at that point that, hey, I'm one of the dudes that you created the garden for to protect you, right? So that means there is some universe out there where this time loop doesn't get solved, and time just goes on, and then everybody probably dies. Where Ultimecia actually gets her plan off, right?
Yeah.
To compress all of time and destroy all of everything, and I don't have a clue why she even wants to do that to begin with. It's just bad.
Yeah. Well, see,
and then everybody in all of time in that universe dies. Like, surely that universe exists for like a second.
Yeah, until somebody tried to stop it. Right?
But how?
But how did you do it? Yeah. Well, it's kind of the same thing that happens in Doctor Who. I mean, yeah, it happens all the time, but in specific, I'm thinking about the episodes with the Pandorica and the Doctor getting trapped in it, and there's no way of getting him out, except somehow he got out because somebody slipped him the sonic screwdriver to begin with. But the whole way that has to start is you have to go back to the idea, how did he get out in the first place to slip the screwdriver to somebody?
Yeah.
That means in some timeline ahead of what happened, somehow he got out. But they never address that. It's just the fact that you just accept, oh, Rory's helping him get out, and he's passing it off to this, and now he has to wear the fez again, and this, that, and the other. But you don't answer the initial question of how did he get out in the first place to start the loop.
Well, that's kind of a problem with the Almanac in Back to the Future 2, isn't it?
Like, how does the Almanac come in? Well, we know how the Almanac comes into play is that Marty brings it from the future. That's what starts that. Like that, there's a causality there of Marty having messed with stuff and going against Doc Brown saying, don't bring anything back, it could affect things, and then Biff being smart enough to use that to gain his fortune. But then that also goes into a whole other thing about time, where even if he brings back the Almanac, him using the Almanac to gain money, the Almanac itself...
It would be inaccurate.
Yeah, because... Well, would it be inaccurate or wouldn't it? Because you think about it like the Polaroid that Marty has, when stuff starts changing, the people in the photos start fading out.
Right.
So with the Almanac, what happens if things change and the Almanac itself changes to where no matter what, it has the answers? In that case, Biff having the Almanac makes perfect sense. No matter what, he would have his fortune.
Ugh, I hate...
No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
If it's an artifact from the future that is subject to change, if Biff getting money earlier on changes the outcome, he has something from the future that as well can be affected. That way, no matter what the change is, he would still know what the change is.
Yeah, okay.
So that makes perfect sense for him to want to hold on to the almanac. That actually is much easier to wrap your mind around.
Uh-huh.
So that's not the same. That's not nearly the same problem as, say, the time loops of these other franchises.
In fact, Final Fantasy 1 has a pretty bad time loop, too.
Oh, you're right.
Which is probably where Final Fantasy 8 got it from in the first place. Like, oh, you're supposed to be these legendary heroes, and you go and you defeat Garland. And it turned out that Garland was actually this dude from the past, or he went back into the past, and then he got stronger, and then you had to go into the past to defeat him in the past, but he was in the future first, and then...
And then it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Well, because the biggest problem I have with a time loop, if at all, is... Because really I don't have much of a problem with the time loops in Den-O, because you can pretty much figure those out as it is, and I thank them for that. The biggest problems I have with time loops are actually in Kiva, where there shouldn't have been time travel to begin with, but it's the fact that Kiva, Wataru, basically is the reason his dad is dead at all to begin with, and gives him just enough time... Hypothetically, because I tried working this out with some people, basically, Wataru is the product of a human and a Fangaya coming together and making a halfling, which ends up being Wataru.
Uh-huh.
You know, and allowing him access to being part human and part Fangaya, and allowing him access to the Kiva powers. Through a stupid time loop, Wataru goes back in time, causing his dad to acquire the Dark Kiva powers, but also in such that makes him subject to dying. So in the process of him dying, he doesn't have very much time with his Fangaya mother, Maya, which basically, by my best calculations, gave him about, give or take, 2 to 6 hours that they don't cover in the show to basically copulate with Maya and create Wataru.
I guess it happened.
I guess it happened in there off screen between those 2 hours, but that was an example of you guys really weren't paying attention to the time travel you were writing, because you kind of just did it. Because you were telling this split story. Like, if it had been 2 stories that were connected through, like, journals or stuff like that, which I thought it was going to be, that would be cool. You know, they just kind of ran parallel to each other. It's like, you know what, yeah, stuff does echo the past. But when you have them directly influencing one another, then you've gone into this whole other territory that leaves for problems to be created left and right.
Sometimes I'm a little sad that that's my birthday, writer.
Oh, is that Kiva?
Yeah, because it launched in 2008 on my birthday while I was out there to watch it, which was really cool at the time.
Yeah.
But
I don't have a birthday writer, I just know All Riders vs. Die Shocker was released on my birthday.
Oh, okay.
So that's my thing. So that's my claim on that. And then...
Like, I'm not saying that 1986, January 27th, has a writer. I'm saying that in 2008, on my birthday, Kiva was released.
Well, it's the same thing with me. In 2009, on my birthday, that's when All Riders vs. Die Shocker came out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so...
I'm gonna need to get to whatever that gas station is for my own.
Oh, I got you. Well, you want to stop here? It's almost been an hour.
Yeah, you know what? Okay.
Alright, well, we'll cut it there. I know that's a lot of stuff you guys probably...
don't actually care about.
But we did it anyway because we like doing this stuff. So, okay, that was the thing.
Okay, yay, thanks, bye.
Okay, bye. Okay, bye. Okay, bye. Okay, bye. Okay, bye. Okay, bye. Okay.